Welcome to Mental Health Momentum, a Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm Dr. David Morgan. I'm a licensed psychologist and the Director of Mental Health Awareness here at Silicon Slopes. And on this podcast, we talk about mental health issues in business and beyond, and we look for solutions. I'm going to introduce my guest to you today, and I just practiced her last name, Marianne Viray. Got it. Okay.
Well
Spelled V-I-R-A-Y. You wouldn't think it's like that. It's Filipino, you said.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to call you Marianne because then I don't have to say your
Perfect.
last name because I got Marianne down. Let me tell you about Marianne. She is a nonprofit leader with a deep commitment to civic engagement and democratic vitality. She currently serves as Executive Director of Disagree Better, a national initiative chaired by Governor Spencer Cox, championing healthy conflict as a catalyst for better policy outcomes. Marianne's work has spanned from field research to leadership roles. Her research has supported investigative journalism on campaign finance and has been cited by the Supreme Court. She served as the founding managing director for Senator John McCain's The Reform Institute and the Legal Campaign Center. Welcome, Marianne. Thanks for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We met at a town hall that we did here at Slopes a while ago, and I was just super impressed. I thought you did such a great job. And I had heard about, I know about Disagree Better, and I loved that that you're a part of that. So we're going to talk about that here in a little bit because I love that. I just love the whole idea of it because we're bound to disagree, right?
Yes, that's right.
And we should disagree,
Yes.
right? We should have healthy conversation about it, but unfortunately, I think we're getting to a point where we're having difficulty doing that in a healthy or productive way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, well, let's talk about mental health real quick. Any personal experiences with mental health yourself or like in family or anything, but any interest in it?
For sure.
Okay.
Because it's such a big part of our identity.
It is anymore. Yeah.
Right?
Well,
And
it
a
probably
family
always has
culture.
been. Yeah. And now we're acknowledging it. Yeah.
And we're spending more time talking about
Yeah.
mental health challenges, as we should, to normalize them, to destigmatize them, and also to help people have the resources and tools to work through the
Yeah.
challenges that we all experience.
It's so true. The lack of discussion about it is probably, maybe that was the unhealthiest part back in the day. We probably both grew up in a time when it wasn't talked about much.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And
I was just going to say on a personal level, I grew up in a small family in Arizona. I was raised in Tucson, but my mother had experienced a pretty traumatic car crash in her teenage years that left her with chronic pain for life. And being one of two children and the oldest daughter, I saw her struggle with that pain, and that led to depression on occasion, and that led to some other challenges along with just the physical challenges of mobility and chronic pain. And so that's definitely something that I was exposed to from a very young age in our home.
yeah. And I think like you said, it touches everybody now. And I think it's great to talk about it and try to figure out, well, what are we going to do about this? I think a lot of times we see ourselves as victims to it and we feel like there's nothing we can do about it. That's actually getting into the Disagree Better stuff. Same thing, right? You look at the current political landscape and you go, this thing is a mess, right? And there's no way we can possibly do something about this, but there is.
There is.
And when we start thinking, what can we do about this, as opposed to how am I just going to be tossed around by this, for the next 30 years of my life or something, then I think that's when things get better. So is Governor Cox still involved in it, or because was it his idea to begin with?
It was his idea.
Okay.
And this is back in 2023. He was nominated to be the chair of the National Governors Association. Right. And when you're chair of the National Governors Association, it's a bipartisan body of 55 governors of states and territories of the United States. And as chair, you have a 12-month life cycle for that role.
Okay.
And you get to pick an initiative. And then you get to basically force all the governors to spend some time on it over the duration of your,
right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So usually it is a policy issue.
Okay.
It's affordable housing, or it's energy abundance, or it's higher education. And Governor Cox and his team were thinking through, well, as chair, what do we want our initiative to be? Immigration's another one that they've talked about. And they basically boiled everything down to the idea that we can't make headway on any of these policy issues that are really important if we all hate each other so much we're unwilling to come to the table. So he said, well, we've got to start there. Let's go upstream. What's the problem? The problem is we hate each other so much that we're unwilling to engage in dialogue. And therefore, we don't come up with the best solutions because we're not engaging in the hard conversations.
Yeah.
So he invited all the governors to focus the year of his chairmanship on this campaign called Disagree Better, which was leaning into what is polarization in America? What's the root of it? What's going on? What can governors do about it? What can American citizens do about it? How do we change the tide to avoid the dramatic and really bad impacts of polarization in America?
Right.
And then interestingly, after that 12 months, there were some really good lessons learned. Stanford proved some things about work that they had done during that year that showed that it moved the needle, that the public service announcements that they were doing, modeling constructive dialogue across difference, that featured a Republican governor and a Democrat governor engaging together in a 90-second public service announcement, actually changed people's perceptions and behaviors. That it was decided that it would be spun off into a standalone nonprofit, because the life cycle of the initiative was almost over. That's right. It's a short runway. And so that's the organization that I lead. So he continues to be an honorary chair, and he will always remain the founder of it.
Of course, yeah.
And we have lots of other leaders that are coming to the table and engaging with us, and that's exciting.
So what is the work you do now? Because obviously you don't have 55 governors all forced to come to your meetings. And so how do you spread the influence?
We focus on inviting leaders that we believe model this and how they are working and leading to be featured in public service announcements, and we invite them to be on stages where we sponsor events. So that's at universities, that's at the Washington National Cathedral, that's in events that we put on with funding partners in different cities on different stages to model this kind of behavior, to normalize it, to incentivize more of it. Yeah. And also because we know that it impacts people in positive ways. It gives us all some hope.
Right. When you were talking earlier, you mentioned use the word hate a couple times, and I agree. But it's interesting because disagreement and policy differences are one thing, but then to take it to that next level of kind of that emotional intensity, any ideas to why we're going that hard? I mean, it seems like there was a time where it was more civil. Yeah. And it was, and people could just say, we just have different ideas here, but there's so much emotion attached to it. Do you have any insight into that as to why that's happening?
A few ideas based on some research, but I will say that the United States is a little singular in this and not in a good way. Like, we get the gold medal and I wish we could give it back. In that, the Pew Charitable Trust did some research lately, and they showed that Americans hate each other more than any other democracy in America. That we think other people are immoral and untrustworthy at a higher rate than any other country in the world that's a democracy. That is deeply problematic, right? And there are social scientists and constitutional experts that are very concerned that our democracy relies on morality. Our democracy relies on trust. And if we don't have that, can our democracy stand? Yeah. I think the answer is we have some work to do, and it is possible to rebuild trust and to rebuild morality in each other and in institutions. Yeah. But when you ask about the question of why, I think social media is a really big problem. These information silos really gin us up. They really turn our emotions upside down. They spike our cortisol in all the wrong ways. They keep us engaged in more and more provocative content because it keeps us clicking, it keeps us swiping, and it further removes us from each other.
I believe that. It is fascinating. If I'm ever on social media and I see something that I want to remember to look at later, all I need to do is click on it because I know it'll show up in my feed again, right? Guaranteed. I don't have to write it down. I don't have to screenshot it or anything because I'm guaranteed I will see that another 50 times in the next week and a half. I'll be like, oh yeah, I wanted to look up that thing. Yeah. Yes, I agree. I read a book not too long ago called The Righteous Mind by Dr. Jonathan Haidt. Do you know that book?
I do.
Yeah. And Dr. Haidt is a smart fellow for sure. But in the book, he talks about the rider and the elephant, and to use the example of exactly what it is, a human rider on top of an elephant. and elephants go where they want to go. The riders don't have a whole lot of determination up
Your
there.
reins, if any.
Yeah, exactly. Any reins
aren't leading.
Right. The elephant probably feels you like we feel a fly on our back or something. And then what generally happens is the elephant goes where they want to go, and then the rider says, "Oh, this is where I wanted to go in the first place." And look, we've arrived, at the place I wanted to be. And Dr. Haidt says that the rider is reason and the elephant is emotion and passion. And so what happens is our passions take us in certain directions, and then we decide from there, oh, well, this is where I wanted to be. And then we create a backstory and a rationale for why we want to be there. But we're led by the nose, by our passions. And it is too bad. I wish that we had more critical thinking when it comes to a lot of decisions, but most decisions are made emotional. I know. And it is kind of a bad place to be in politically, I think, because we shouldn't be deciding things emotionally. We should have good conversations and talk about it and that. So anyway.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we're making those decisions too quickly, that there's some pressure with it. And therefore you don't necessarily get all the ideas being represented in a room, and you're not having the thoughtful dialogue that presents options and opportunities and costs, because of course there are opportunities and costs with any direction you take a policy position. And so I think deliberation is lacking, that there's too much grandstanding and not enough engagement and coalition building around decisions in Washington as well.
Yeah. People talk about conflict, and you talk about healthy conflict, which I love that descriptor. And I think there are some people out there who would say, well, there's no such thing. They think all conflict is bad. But I disagree, and I know you'll disagree as well. How would you define healthy conflict?
Productive. And it doesn't mean that anyone is changing their mind. It means that you are learning something. So for me, healthy conflict is conflict where we learn something about one of three things: the issue, you, or me. Right? And then that makes it constructive. So something that the relationship holds through. Right? It is durable. The relationship doesn't crumble because you and I are different people. Yeah. We're going to have different lived experiences. We're going to have different ideas. Great. Let's talk about them. Right? That's healthy. Me learning something about you because we talk about an issue where you're bringing in your experience and your ideas and your positions. Great. I'm learning something about you. Maybe I'm learning something about me because I'm articulating something for the first time. Yeah. And sometimes it isn't until we're forced to articulate something that we actually put A and B together and we wind up finding C. Oh, that's why that issue matters to me. Oh, that's why I feel more strongly here than I would expect I would. So then I'm learning something about me, or let's say I learned something about the issue because our dialogue has kind of informed my view in a new way. All of that, you, me, the issue, makes something healthy.
Yeah. I love that. I was talking with a friend the other day and who's younger, and he's thinking about getting married, and he's worried about that he and his hopefully fiance at some point have some political differences. And he was saying, how are we going to be able to get along, if we think differently on these things? And we talked a little bit about that. We said, it's okay to have differences. In fact, I think in relationships, it's great to not just be in a place where everyone thinks exactly the same as you, but you have differences of opinion, because then that forces us to be able to kind of think outside of our own mental box.
That's right.
It invites kind of curiosity and reflection, and say, oh, maybe my ideas on this were not exactly correct, or maybe there's things to learn from this.
Yeah. The assumption that we ought to think alike is just blatantly wrong.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, we are diverse people. Yeah. No two individuals' lived experiences are ever going to be the same, including siblings. Yeah. How I grew up, how my sister grew up, even though we're 2 years apart, we had some different experiences. We perceived things differently because we're different individuals, even being raised in the same home. And so the idea that we have to think alike in order to get along couldn't be farther from the truth.
Yeah. But we're stuck in that.
We're stuck with each other. Yeah. So then how do we figure out how it is that we can not be so threatened by something that is different?
I think because the disconnection that is happening, I think, is based on a couple things. Number one, it's based on the perceived differences in others, and we think, well, I can't get along with someone who doesn't think exactly like I do. And maybe the fear of thinking, well, how do I approach that situation? We were talking before we started rolling about just taking risks in life. And I think a healthy way to live life, a mentally healthy way to live life, is to take risks in many areas. But we've become so risk averse as a people that we won't even tolerate being in a room with someone who thinks differently than us. You're right. I think social media has made it worse because of the way it's curated. All you're going to see is the stuff that you want, and even like news feeds on my phone. The same thing. I subscribe to Apple News, and it's curated, and I know that it's showing me things that I have clicked on before, right? And I'm sure every place is doing it. And sometimes I have to be intentional about saying, okay, I need to go look at another website or another, app that's going to show me a different perspective here, so I don't just get stuck in this, basically reinforcing my own ideas.
That takes effort.
Yes.
And intentionality to widen that aperture to draw in more perspectives and different viewpoints.
Yeah. Why do you think we don't do that?
I
know you're not a psychologist, but tell me what you think.
Well, I have lots of thoughts on lots of topics. Happy to share them. I have no expertise in any of it. So big grain of salt there. But one idea is that we are programmed to simplify things. Our brains are, right? And so that's our default, is simplify things in order to reduce cognitive load, simplify things in order to put things in boxes, because that's what our brain wants to do, is put things and people and ideas in boxes. And those boxes are labeled good and bad, right and wrong, evil and righteous. Yeah. And, we need fewer boxes, but we have to push back against, and those tendencies were there for our own survival as a species. We've kind of moved past some of that. Right. But that doesn't mean that a moment that feels uncomfortable is existentially threatening to me as an individual. But I feel the feels. It feels the same in my body. It feels the same in my brain. My heart races. My palms get sweaty. Yeah. I look for the exits, and I have to take a deep breath and kind of stay present with conflict and with challenge and something different. But I know that I can push through that, but that I physically have to. I physically have to push through that and do a bit of a risk assessment. Am I really physically unsafe in this situation? No, like, we're having a conversation. Right. It's an idea. I can stay present. I can stay grounded. I can keep my brain online. I don't have to run for the hills. Yeah. But we have to challenge ourselves and push through discomfort. So I think there's this biological thing of, there's a difference between being uncomfortable and being unsafe.
Right.
And we sometimes veer more toward responding to the unsafety of a situation, and we're not doing the critical analysis to recognize, no, I am physically safe. And making sure we're physically safe is crucial always. But there's a bit of a question we could ask. Am I really physically at risk here? Or is my body and brain responding to an idea that feels challenging or provocative or different? Right. And then I get to stay. I get to participate. I get to lean in. I get to try to learn something. This isn't as threatening to me as my brain wants me to feel like it is.
Right. Yeah, and you're spot on. You say you don't know what you're talking about, but you do, because you're exactly, your opinion is correct.
I've read a few good books.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we do have to push back against just kind of that natural instinct that our brain has. And quite frankly, our natural instincts most of the time are for the birds anyway. I mean, to become, kind of more actualized people, we have to go against just what the body and brain just wants all the time, right?
Yeah.
I was talking with a friend the other day about entropy, and there's this idea that things are just getting more and more disorganized, the way the universe works, unless you introduce some sort of stimulus into it and you apply energy, focused energy, to change it from disorganized to organized. And that's the same way our lives are. If we just go with the flow, we're going to end up just getting slightly worse over time, as instead of saying, okay, well, I want to do something different about this. Yeah. And I think the brain is, sometimes people view it as, well, that's just out of my control, but it's not. Our brain is completely under our control. I read something that said our brains they're pre-wired, but not hardwired. And I love that
That
explanation of
factory
that.
setting is not the operating system.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Yeah. And so, because people say, well, I have these tendencies that I've come with and that seem to be with me the whole time. You're right. You do. And we do have that. And it's those factory settings, but you can change factory settings. You can change it to whatever you want. And the brain will respond to that, but it takes time and effort to do that.
And practice.
Oh, so much practice. Yes.
Repetition. Yeah.
The brain loves repetition. Whatever you do over and over again, the brain will create pathways that make it easier to do. And the brain is completely, what's the right word? I don't want to say amoral. It doesn't have the right or wrong. It just says whatever you do over and over again, we are going to facilitate, period. And it doesn't matter if that's learning to play the piano or if that's learning to slash tires or something like that. It's like we're just going to
be destructive or
exactly. We're just going to get very good at it because you're doing it over and over and over again, and it's going to facilitate that. And so the more good we do and kind of push back on that, the easier things get. Let's talk about the workplace a little bit, because obviously that same hatred, stuff. I mean, that's going to happen in the workplace as well.
Yeah.
Any ideas for how we can better manage conflict in workplace settings? How we can disagree better there?
For sure, we can. And it's one of the few places where people will absolutely rub up with people of different opinions and persuasions and political positions.
You don't have a choice.
Because you don't have a choice.
Job, right?
Right, you got the job. That's huzzah.
And this is the person sitting on the line next to me. So,
you didn't necessarily choose those 12 colleagues.
Right. Exactly.
And so, whereas we get a lot of choices on where we spend our time.
Sure.
And who we spend our time with, work isn't necessarily one of those. And so workplace conflict is a real thing, and there are real costs to workplace incivility. There's an organization called the Society for Human Resource Managers, and it is a global organization, and they try to help.
SHRM, yeah.
Yes.
I know SHRM, yeah.
Yes, they try to give a lot of good tools and resources to HR and people managers. Yeah. But they do an index on a quarterly basis in the United States where they ask a bunch of questions of corporate leaders in HR positions to gauge how much incivility is impacting the workforce in America. And I think their recent statistics from their most recent quarterly report is that acts of incivility, and they define those in three ways. It's you being uncivil to a colleague, or it's somebody bailing on work, and so absenteeism, like they're just not even showing up for the job, or lack of productivity. You're slower at whatever it is that you do. They are studying that, and they say that there are over 200 million acts of incivility in the American workforce on a daily basis that's causing the U.S. economy to lose over $2 billion a day. So incivility is real, and corporations have a lot of political incentive and financial incentive to help their individual workforces to work with each other in better ways.
And it's great because you basically have a captive audience there too, right?
That's right.
Most people, they have the job, they don't necessarily want to lose the job, and so you can help them learn. Does Disagree Better help with anything like that, or you just provide like
we
models?
don't, and other colleagues do.
Okay.
And so I have seen organizations lean into interventions like the Dignity Index and get corporate training on how to talk in a more dignified way and with less contempt, just to have that framework of how am I treating somebody? What are the words that I'm using? Am I signaling that I respect this person, that I see their dignity and their worth? Or am I treating them in a contemptuous way? How am I showing up? So I've seen corporations at a national level, at a global level, lean into that particular intervention or model. I have other colleagues that run other organizations in this space that are also doing different trainings, but it is a closed culture. And so for that, and because of that, there are really strong ways where corporate leaders can lean in here and provide their workforces with greater conflict competency skills. You could turn it into a professional development course. You could embed it in an onboarding process, a quarterly review process, where this is one of the metrics that we're actually going to talk about, is how we treat each other on our teams. And top-down modeling matters a lot.
I was just going to say that, yes.
Top-down modeling matters a lot. How open are those leaders to receiving constructive feedback or criticism? I have talked with a couple high-level corporate people in the state of Utah who have told me that this is a real problem, that they see this in their corporations, that people are self-silencing in team meetings, and then they hear something they don't like, and they're filing compliance complaints against their colleagues at record levels, rather than in an anonymous way, rather than having a conversation with a manager or a colleague about what was said or how something was said. So that sense of avoidance, that desire to avoid a hard conversation is something that within a corporation could do better at inviting those opportunities for dialogue and constructive feedback. 360 reviews, not just hearing top down, but hearing sideways. What do my colleagues think about me? How am I as a colleague? Am I supportive? Am I encouraging? Am I giving constructive criticism when it's deserved? Because criticism is important.
Right.
It just has to be the right flavor, the right variety, right?
I love that. And I think that in as much as businesses are ignoring that or not being intentional about it, you're right. I think it's going to hurt, because I think, unfortunately, the trajectory is for us to become more closed, more afraid, more hostile, all the things you talked about earlier. We can totally reverse that, but it's not going to happen. We're not just going to magically do that, at the way society is going. We're going to have to decide we're going to do something different about this, at least in my home or in my business or in my county or in my state or whatever group you're talking about. We have to do something different so that we don't continue just to, hate each other and isolate in homogenous groups where we don't entertain any sort of idea that's different than ours. It's kind of a recipe for destruction. I mean, I don't be like fatalistic, but it really, we're not going anywhere with that.
No. Well, let me tell you, we are involved with something that I think is really neat in the state of Utah. And that is a collaboration with the Utah Dispute Resolution Organization and Utah State University. And we are co-sponsoring a course. It's 40 hours. It's no joke, of conflict competency skills. And this training is offered by a professor up at Utah State University named Dr. Chad Ford. He is an expert in peacemaking and conflict negotiation and transformation. He's been doing this work for 30 years. He's worked with Nike. He's worked in Israel and Palestine. He's worked all over the place. But the idea here in Utah is to pilot these cohorts with various leaders from different industries, different businesses, nonprofit sector, advocacy sector, education, law, social work, teaching, in order to upskill leaders in conflict competencies. And then these leaders have some new skills that they get to bring back to their spaces and spheres of influence and work on embedding them. And we're seeing that play out.
I love that.
So if there are corporate leaders out there that are interested in learning more, go hit up Dr. Chad Ford at Utah State University or drop me a note and I'll put you in touch.
Is there a place, if they want to learn more just about all of this, where can they go?
Yeah, a couple of websites. One, disagreebetter.us will tell you all about our organization, our mission. But Utah State University has a transformative mediation course, and this is this course that I'm referring to. So there's a website there. We could link to it somewhere.
Awesome.
I think you've got a place
sure
for notes like that.
Marianne, thank you so much for coming in today. Thank you for the great work you're doing as well. I love that this Disagree Better got some legs past the 1 year that Governor Cox had to use it as a...
Thank you. Me too.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's amazing. So thanks for all you're doing.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you.
And thanks everyone for listening today. Remember that change starts with you, and together we can increase our mental health momentum.